Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming tonight. My name is Rob. I organize Idea to IPO. We've been doing events in Silicon Valley for many, many years. We always have a busy calendar of events. We hold events multiple times a week from San Jose to San Francisco. I want to highlight a few events that are coming up. Thursday, November 21st, we have another venture capital panel in this room, investment and latest innovations in robotics. December 5th, in collaboration with the Commonwealth Club, we have Ben Horowitz of Andreessen Horowitz at the Santa Clara Convention Center. December 12th, we're back in Palo Alto, a few miles away. We have a venture capital panel that will be discussing 2019 in review and what's hot in 2020. So check out the details for those events and all of our events on our website, ideatoipo.com. We launched officially on February 1st, 2010. At that time, we had no members and no events on our calendar. At this stage, we have over 60,000 members among all our meetup groups in the Bay Area. We've organized, promoted, and produced over 2,100 events. By any standard, by any measure, we're the most active, most prolific startup event organization in Silicon Valley, bar none. To expand on that woohoo, if we're the most active, most prolific startup event organization in Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley is the global center of entrepreneurship and innovation, that would make us the most active, most prolific startup event organization in the entire world. Woohoo!
Could it be the entire universe?
I'll save it for next time, okay? I can't do it all in one day. Our mission is to promote entrepreneurship, support entrepreneurs, build community, and provide value in the Silicon Valley startup ecosystem. To that end, we provide content that's practical, actionable, and relevant, stuff you can actually use to succeed as entrepreneurs. We believe in building community because Silicon Valley is an aspirational ecosystem. It attracts people from all over the world who come here to do great things. Who here is not originally from Silicon Valley or the greater San Francisco Bay Area? Who here was born and raised in Silicon Valley or the greater San Francisco Bay Area? Wow, we got like 10 natives today. That's awesome. Well, let's hear it for the natives. Whether you were born and raised here or just arrived last night, it's important for us to provide multiple channels for you to meet people, build relationships, and grow your network. So in addition to our content-oriented events throughout the week, we also have some fun events on Friday nights. We have a regular TGIF mixer, thank God it's Friday, at the Hyatt Regency Santa Clara. And the next one's actually tomorrow, Friday, November 15th. And it's going to be hosted by one of our team members, Colby Lepore. Let's hear it for Colby. And I think he is a San Francisco Bay Area native. Awesome. With regard to value, it is important that we provide value at each and every one of our events. Not just value for your money, which is important because we know many entrepreneurs are struggling financially. So we make sure our events are affordable, and if you cannot afford the cover charge for whatever reason, come talk to me and we can work something out. And at each and every one of our events, we make sure that we provide a delicious buffet meal. Is that a delicious buffet meal?
Yes.
Well, let's hear it. I want to recognize, acknowledge, and thank Procopio for sponsoring that delicious buffet meal. So let's hear it for Procopio. More importantly, though, at each and every one of our events, we want to make sure that we provide value for your time, which is your most valuable resource. Anyone here getting any younger besides our panel?
Here for your eyes.
And this young man, and that young lady, and this young man. So when you invest your valuable time to come to our events, we want to make sure that you maximize your ROI. We have many, many partners that help us do what we do: law firms, venture capital firms, angel investor groups, incubators, accelerators, colleges, universities, lots of players in Silicon Valley. So tonight, once again, we're grateful to Procopio for hosting us at this beautiful venue, providing us with the delicious buffet meal, and providing us with an awesome moderator, this guy. So let's hear it for Procopio.
Thank you. Wow. Let me move this down. Oh my God. All right.
We have a few other partners here tonight. I would like to have them come up and say a few words. Let's hear it for Jennifer in Realty School 101. Applause.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Stowell, and I am a real estate broker. And I also co-founded Realty School 101, which provides pre-license real estate courses for anyone looking to get a license or upgrade to a broker. If you have any questions, please see me at the Rosewood.
All right. There's an invitation to go to Rosewood. Next up, we have Walt from In Vitro Snap. Applause.
Thank you, Rob. So how many of you, I probably shouldn't ask guys, but everybody's had to wait for the doctor to send your biopsy to the lab to get it analyzed. So we're going to solve that problem. We're building a device that the doctor just puts the biopsy right into it, and it makes a slide, magnifies it 1,000 times, makes an image, sends the image to the pathologist, and you get back results almost immediately. And when that pathologist becomes an AI, it's even faster than that. So we're looking for investors in healthcare, medical, or AI.
All right. Next up, we have Ajish and Food Pulsar. Applause.
Thank you, Rob. Hello, everyone. My name is Ajish Nair. I'm the founder at Food Pulsar. So Food Pulsar is a hyper-local marketplace where people can connect to each other with local shops to buy, sell, and share food. And we are like an eBay or OLX to sell, buy, share food locally. And our mission is to help people to buy, share, sell food locally. Thank you.
Right. Though our local mission is to support entrepreneurs here in Silicon Valley, our global mission, though, is to democratize entrepreneurship and innovation all around the world. To that end, we maintain a robust YouTube channel, youtube.com/idea to IPO. Go check it out. We have tons of videos there. We've archived and documented many of our events, and this rich, valuable content is available on demand, anytime, anywhere, totally free of charge, whether you're in Palo Alto, San Francisco, New York, LA, Maui, Moscow, or Timbuktu. They have Wi-Fi in Timbuktu. Our partner in this endeavor is Tim Jeggers of Jeggers Films, one of the top professional videographers in Silicon Valley. So let's hear it for Tim.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rob. So I'm Tim Jeggers. I've been doing video and photography production around the Bay Area for over a decade now. I specialize in video and events. I've been documenting Rob's stuff for several years now. I also do branding material. I do pre-production all the way through actual production and post-production. So if you're interested in any content creation, I can help you every step of the way, from brainstorming to scripting, storyboarding, shooting, editing, all that fun stuff, and then figuring out what platforms to implement it on. And I shoot weddings on the weekends, so if that's also something you're interested in, or if you have questions about where to find the content, feel free to ask me about that later on. We will do Q&A from 8 to 8:30, so when you do, we're going to have you line up here. That way I'm getting good sound to put into the video so that it makes sense when people watch it later and it's not just them talking. And thanks for coming.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's the schedule for the rest of the evening. Our panel will launch into a dynamic, compelling, informative, entertaining, unbelievable discussion, right? At 8 o'clock, we're going to open up to questions from the audience. As Tim mentioned, we're going to form a line here. We'd like to use the lectern because we're recording, and use the microphone. We want to take as many questions as possible. We'll wrap up the formal program at 8:30 p.m. We do have a raffle, which will take place, at that time. This is a book I got the other night, America's Game, the NFL 100, signed by Jerry Rice of the San Francisco 49ers. The GOAT, the greatest of all time. So someone in this room will win this book. If you're around, you must be present to win. We'll end the formal program. We'll be done with the raffle. You can stick around, network, socialize, and connect, talk to the panel. As a courtesy to Procopio, we would like to leave the building by 9 p.m. If you want to keep the conversation going, meet me for the after party. It's at the Rosewood, and it's Thursday night. Enough said. So at this point, I'm going to pass it off to our distinguished moderator. He's one of the top intellectual property attorneys in Silicon Valley. He's a partner at this distinguished law firm. And most importantly, he is passionate about helping entrepreneurs succeed. Yeah, that's you. It's Eli Mansour. Let's give it up for Eli.
Thank you, Rob. Welcome, everybody. As Rob mentioned, I am a partner here at Procopio, and I'm a technology transactions lawyer. I'm the head of the licensing practice at Procopio, and my 5-second pitch is that I help companies make money with their technology. So anytime you have technology and you want to figure out what to do with it, I can help you. I think I'm breaking the sound yet. Yeah, when I move it up, it's too loud. Hello?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that's what I do. And briefly about Procopio, we have about 200 attorneys in the Southwest. We have all kinds of practice areas, from obviously IP, tech transactions, corporate formation, all the way to the really sad stuff like litigation and divorce and stuff like that, which I don't really get involved in. But this office, especially here, focuses on startups. You may have seen the program advertised, the moderator as Roger Rappaport. I'm not Roger Rappaport. He's my partner who actually is a VC attorney. I mean, he does financings, corporate formations, things like that. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to be here, so I'm stepping in for him. And this is actually a very interesting topic because I'm not as familiar, let's say, as Roger would be about the topic and the questions I'm going to be asking. So it's going to be as much of a learning experience for me as it is for all of you. So it'll be kind of cool. Before turning it over and having the panelists introduce themselves, Rob wanted me to take a survey out here to figure out who everybody is, just so that the panelists can target their answers. So first of all, who here is a founder of a tech company? Wow. Okay, awesome. Who's an employee of a tech startup?
Well, the founders are.
Well, yeah, other than the founders. Who's an enterprise employee? Okay, so you know your audience is. There isn't a single enterprise employee. Okay, government employee. We love the government. Okay, no, we hate the government. Excellent. Okay, any academics? Okay, excellent. Student, that's close enough. You're in the academic arena. Okay. How about an investor? All right, so we've got the investors, and we've got all the tech startups. How about a lawyer? Get out. No, I'm kidding. All right, journalist, blogger, writer, marketer, or PR person. I think my voice is too loud.
Do you want to try this?
Yeah, maybe I should. Actually, I can speak really loudly. Can everybody hear me?
If you just project, it's better on the video's audio too.
Yeah, I think they want to.
Oh, really?
Try
But if they
this.
can't hear you, use the mic.
Okay.
Try mine.
Yeah, I think this thing is just too sensitive. Is this better? Hello. Excellent. Okay. And finally, someone who is joining us today with just an idea for a tech startup. Okay. Excellent. Welcome. Okay, so as panelists, as you can see, we've got a lot of tech startups and people who are obviously looking for money. And that's where you come in. So I'm going to turn it over to you and ask you all to introduce yourselves, and then we'll launch into the questions.
Hello, my name is Anna Pekina. I work with DCVC Bio. DCVC and DCVC Bio, two funds that work together. One is focused on deep tech across a lot of different industries. So think of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the other fund where I'm at focus on biotech and agriculture. We invest in seed, Series A, early stage, tend to be a lead investor, and take board seats. We're pretty active with our portfolio companies. We launched 2 years ago. Previously, I was at Monsanto Growth Ventures, so corporate venture capital, for those that might be interested in kind of corporate VC and the differences with the traditional VC funds. My personal background is financial. I come from investment banking, and then I worked at hedge fund for a little bit, investing in biotech, and then after business school, got into venture capital.
Hello everyone, my name is Fabian Hansen. I am an entrepreneur as well. I launched a new VC fund 9 months ago, it's a fund that is pretty flexible, so we invest across stages, across sectors, a lot of biotech as well, and that's how we know each other. But really sector agnostic and stage agnostic. And it's an $80 million fund. I co-founded it with Christian Angermayer together, who is a well-known German entrepreneur. And I moved here actually only 3 months ago, so I'm pretty new. And so we do also indirect investments. We also invest into other VC funds as LPs. That's separate to the direct investments. And so my background is I used to work in venture at a venture fund in London and at a startup incubator. It's like a company builder, so they launch new companies from scratch, basically.
Cool. So I don't think that mic works.
Oh my goodness.
So yours is too loud and mine doesn't work.
Yeah.
All right, so good evening, everybody. My name is SC at SC Moatti. I'm the managing partner of a firm called Presight Capital. What's unique about us is that we give our portfolio companies access to a business acceleration platform, which is a global network of almost 300,000 product managers. And so our portfolio companies use that to sell their product. Some of them were investors in Amplitude, say they've generated millions of dollars in revenue from accessing the network. Some of them use the network to hire difficult business and technical talent. We're investors in Mission Bio, and they say they've been able to source someone where there's like maybe 1 in 5 people in the world who can do that kind of work, product development at scale. And then they also use it as a way to find a buyer for the company, so as a path to liquidity, because very often a chief product officer or a VP product at a large company like Salesforce, Cisco, Google, and so on will actually buy companies. And so that's the value we bring. And we invest typically Series A, B, C.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to use this mic, I think.
Okay.
As long as I hold it away from my mouth, it's not so bad. Okay, so by the way, the panel is also very international. I just want to mention, everybody at this table was actually not born in this country. So I was actually born in Lebanon, of all places. She's from Kazakhstan, he's from Germany, and she's from France. So pretty cool international panel. We were talking about all of our travel experiences before we all got together. So that was pretty interesting. But anyway, so everybody here is... Yeah, maybe that one.
We'll be just passing it.
Yeah, we'll just be passing it all night. Oh. Well, anyway, everybody here is looking for money. They're all tech startups. And so I guess the first question I would have for the VCs is, what do you guys look for? What do you invest in? What kind of companies are you investing in?
Sure, I'll start. Again, on the buy side, we invest in biotechnology companies that focus on computational tech, and then agriculture. In agriculture, it's actually quite broad. We invest in anything that has to do with science, so chemistry, biotech, kind of CRISPR, gene editing, to robotics, IoT, marketplaces. So we're quite agnostic to the business model. It's more about like where is the niche and where is the problem and who solves that problem the best. And in a way, we actually come from the background where we really kind of launched the AgTech VC investment because Monsanto bought the Climate Corporation, and that really attracted a lot of people into the AgTech space. And on the bio side, it's various biotech platforms, but more with a focus on companies actually developing an asset, meaning a drug in-house.
So in our case, we do a lot of biotech as well and look for the similar things there in that space. But I think in general, since we're sector agnostic and we invest in many other areas as well, I think for us, it's kind of like a unique combination. It's a little bit like when you cook something, it's like the recipe, you have obviously the flour that goes in, and then you have the recipe and the different ingredients. So I think every startup has, 3 core ingredients. 1 is the idea, 2 is the team, and 3 is the capital. And I think at the end of the day, the combination of the 3 idea team capital is what makes it a great cake, I guess. And so we always look at, is it really a great ingredient? What and then in each category, obviously we have our own thoughts into what type of team we want to back and what type of idea makes it unique and how much capital you need. But it's pretty, like, I think there's not really a clear like one answer that one can give. It's so dependent on each case.
So we post on our website. It's actually the first post on our blog. The kind of companies that we're looking for, and it's a fairly simple set of criteria that, if I hear a pitch like this, then I'm going to become very interested. It says we are a unique team, so unique being what you need to demonstrate, solving a big and hard problem. So quantify it not just with numbers but also emotionally, like why is it a hard problem to solve for your customers? With a sustainably differentiated solution. Sustainably differentiated being the important piece. Very often we hear entrepreneurs tell us like, oh, I have this feature or I have this advantage. But what we're really looking for is once you start to get some traction, then your small and your big competitors are both going to go after you. Say, oh, that's what works. I'm going to do the same thing. Well, how do you still win? So what's your sustainable competitive advantage? So that's the first thing, right? Then as a result of that, and we monetize it fairly, so we want to understand your business model. And then as a result of that, our financials look very promising. So I mentioned we invest slightly later stage. So we want to see that you're revenue and business minded. And to get where we want to go, we need money. So we want to understand what kind of deal you're offering us. And then here's how we plan to return much more of that money. And that's the criteria. I spent a dozen years as an operator, and it's only really once I wore the investor cap full time that I realized how important that is, both for you and for us as investors, which is understanding from the beginning that you're going to have an exit, right? There's a beginning and an end to the business you want to build. And that's really important if you're going to be raising venture money, that you sort of have that end in mind early on.
Let's try keeping it there. I think
Okay,
it just gives
sure.
feedback. I think, yeah. Okay, so I think several of you talked about the team. Like you look for a team and you look for a unique team. So what does that mean? Like what is a team that you look for, and what makes it unique? What makes it ideal?
I can talk through that. So prior to running this firm, I started a network called Founder Dating, and some of you may have heard of it. It's a network that helps people who look to start companies find a co-founder. So it's professional matchmaking. And the story being, at the time I was looking to start a business, I wanted a co-founder. And so rather than go to people one by one, say, hi, I'm looking for a co-founder, which is kind of desperate, I said, hey, I have a whole network of other co-founders, including myself. And if you want to be part of this network, then I'll help you find a co-founder. But obviously, then I got first pick at finding my co-founder. And so I interviewed literally a couple thousand people who were looking to start and grow companies. And I learned three things about a great match. One is you want complementary skill set. So not all engineer, not all finance, not all biz dev, complementary. Second is you want compatible communication style, because there's going to be disagreement no matter what. You want to know that there's a way you're going to come out of that in a positive way. And then third criteria is you want to have similar appetite for risk. And that third criteria, the more I look at investments, the more I think it's really critical, because if you have a co-founder who wants nothing but an IPO, who's going to get offended at $100 million exit, and for you, exiting at $25 million allows you to buy 5 Ferraris and a big house, you're never going to have a successful business. And so similar appetite for risk is really important.
So I think actually I do kind of agree with the complementary part, but at the same time I also think that I personally I personally don't I also don't mind it too much. I think at the end of the day, especially in the early days of a startup, when the warehouse is blowing up and you're running an e-commerce shop, everyone needs to run into the warehouse, and at the same time you need to be able to run accounting. So I think, especially at the very early stages of a startup, I think it's not too bad if it's if the skill sets are very similar in a way. I don't worry too much about the complementary aspect, but that's just me personally. I think what I care most about is actually a sense of urgency. I think what I've noticed in most of the very best founders is that they have this extreme drive and sense of urgency to build things and deliver at a certain speed. So every time you meet them, there's like an update and there's a lot of progress, and so that speed and drive, I think, is the key for me personally.
I just thought of a really good person for you. But yes, I think all the points are very important. We think about teams as you would want to invest in an A team and B type of tech rather than B team and A type of tech. So team is very crucial. And I mean, for us, maybe because we invest in such specific industries, most of the founders that we back are usually in their 30s, 40s, 50s, just because these people tend to come from academia, spend a lot of years working maybe at pharma or somewhere in agriculture. But you definitely want to screen for the people, and it is a very, very important part. And when you build the team, make sure that they are aligned. And to your point, I do think that risk appetite is very important, because when you just have an idea, the potential upside is so far into the future that you think, oh, it's fine. I do have an example of a company when the company kind of blew up just because two founders couldn't agree on where they want to go. One founder wanted to sell the company sooner, and one founder actually had a vision to build it to a unicorn. And while they were kind of battling between each other, competition caught up, and anyway, it just ended up all in very ugly lawsuits, and they ended up selling the company for just the talent. So acqui-hire, instead of, they had a $100+ million offer before that. So just be careful on that.
So I just want to kind of follow up one thing you said. What makes an A team as opposed to a B team? Because I know a lot of investors, when we talk to them, they're like, we go, we do our pitches, and we're not getting any interest. We don't understand, but what is it that, and I think it may be because they're not the A team. So, what can you tell the audience as far as, how to become that A team? What kind of factors or things do you look for to say that somebody's an A team?
Yeah, I can start. One thing, you should really understand the market, right? I mean, we come across some companies when we ask, they don't even know their competition. And that's a really bad sign. And there are companies coming out of YC that, considered to be wow, YC are best companies. But there are people we talk to that just did not know their competition, and that's a big, well-known company, and they're like, wait, what's the name? So that's a bad sign. And I'll let others to also just give some other ideas.
I think a big part is also being able to convince people to work with you and for you. I think that is a really important part, because if you want to attract the very best talent, you need to be able to inspire them and convince them to, drop the big Google or Facebook offer and come and join you. And that is connected to a big vision and I think a certain amount of passion that I think you can always sense a little bit when the founder talks about their business.
So I think I've already answered, complementary skill sets, compatible communication styles, similar risk profile. That's really, really important. I do agree with you that knowing how to sell is actually a number one skill in a CEO. And it's not very popular in Silicon Valley to say that. Like we talk a lot about, the ideal founder being this tech guy. No, that's really kind of very much the exception rather than the rule. Like I think great CEOs really are amazing salespeople.
I'll add as well. You wanted to?
I just wanted to add super quickly. I think if I would give one advice in terms of like skill set, I would actually do I think it's obviously a bit too late now maybe, but for like an internship in terms of sales, like sales internship, or like being able to sell a used car, or like insurances, or like that's what I would have loved to do, for example, more, just learning how to sell, I think, because that's so important.
Selling is important in any business. Even as a VC, you have to sell to your LPs. So that's an important skill to have. And while you were saying, I forgot what I wanted to say. But once I remember, I just don't want to keep the clock, but I'll remember this.
Okay, great. So, we've talked about the team and what makes the A team, and I really appreciate kind of the breakdown that you gave of the different characteristics. What should the entrepreneurs ask the investors? Like, what kind of questions do you like to get from entrepreneurs, and what kind of interaction do you look for when you're meeting the entrepreneur for the first time, and and you're trying to sell to them and they're trying to sell to you? So what should they be kind of looking for in a VC?
An entrepreneur looking in VC.
Yeah.
I think you should be aligned on strategy, right? If do your job, homework, look for VCs that invest in the area that you want, know what they're looking for. Usually VCs make introductions, and if you don't understand, ask questions like, oh, exactly what are you looking for? Are we tied to the company? VCs would give you more general answers, but I think there's a way to screen for the right partner. And you definitely want to find the right partner. There are some VCs that do more follow-ons, or VCs that just do syndicates and do little help. And there are VCs that are strategically aligned with you. You can look for a strategic investor, more of a maybe corporate VC, for you to kind of think about potential maybe acquisition, or they might be a great partner and actually buy your product, right? Or they can be very connected with other experts in the industry. So you would want to have an investor like that, because they may want to help you with your top line. But you also want to think of investor who would do a follow-on, right? These are not the people who just come and invest to you, first time, and then they don't really care. You want to make sure that they stay with you long term, and that they help you with the fundraising in later rounds.
Yeah, I would do the same level of due diligence on your VCs as the VCs would do on you. So, which means that I would ask the VC for references as well, like who can I chat to in your portfolio. And also not only the cases where it worked out well, because if things go well, then it's always great, but also because the VC will point you to those companies anyway. So, but I would also specifically ask for calls with portfolio companies where things didn't really work out that well. And because when things don't go well, you can always see a little bit how a VC works also in moments when there's a crisis, or for example, there was one company in our portfolio that was literally 3 days before going bust. It was like literally a series out of a TV show called Silicon Valley. It was like 3 days before going bust. And so we called up every single family office from here to the other side of the world, and we managed to bring them in $500K at the very last minute, which unlocked a venture debt loan. And so the reason why I'm saying this is because I think we like to see ourselves a little bit like as a peer to the entrepreneur. And I like to bring it up because it's really shows our philosophy, and I also like to I would always look for that basically in other venture funds. How do they behave in bad situations?
So the one advice I would give is you want smart money, and there's a different definition of smart money, but it's mainly value add. And let me give you an example of why you want smart money, not dumb money, and then I'll tell you what I think is smart money for different types of companies. So I had this entrepreneur come and pitch to us. He gives an update. business is growing, it's all great, and we're fundraising. And then at the very end, he says, oh, and there's something else that I want to share, which is that we've been discussing with 2 potential acquirers having an exit for the company. And so I'm like, well, what are you doing here? Like, you should be selling your company. This is, first-time entrepreneur. It's going to be life-changing for him. He's going to start another company in a year or 2, whatever. It's just a great outcome for this first company. Well, it's my first time. I'm not sure. I don't know. Okay, so who's on your board? Well, actually, he took dumb money. And so he has investors who don't know how to coach him to successfully sell his company. He doesn't have a strong board. He doesn't have a strong set of investors who are, really helping him see the opportunity. And there's a risk that he's going to waste that chance, right? So that's a lesson where there are so few companies that make it all the way to having a chance to exit. If you don't have the right kind of people around you when that happens, then you're going to rethink a lot of your the last few years you spent so hard won. So get smart money. That's the first thing. Now the second thing is, what is smart money? So there are different kinds of investors. And the very simple way I describe that is based on a segmentation that comes from the world of gaming and social, which some of you may be familiar with, the whales, the dolphins, and the minnows. So if you look at games, the whales are the ones, the players in video games who you will buy like all the shiny armors, all the special weapons, and all that stuff. And when you find a whale, when you're a game developer, you find a whale, you do everything they want. You say, oh, you want a purple armor? Yeah, I have one, and I only have one, and it's really, really expensive, Mr. Customer. You should buy it. Right, that's how you treat a whale in games. Well, there are investors who are whales, right? So they will write you a huge check. They will take a very controlling stake in your company, and as a result, you will work for them, right? You will do whatever it is they ask you to do. So if they're offering you whatever seems extremely big, whether it's 10 or 100 or more $1 million, make sure that when they're offering you or when you get an offer like this, you know exactly how you're going to spend that money. Because if you don't, they're going to bounce you around and you're not going to have the outcome you want for your company. The second, the dolphins, I like to think Moatti Capital is a dolphin. They help you navigate an ecosystem. And so in the world of gaming, they are the ones who will always tell you like, oh, you should play Candy Crush because it's so much fun, right? They're like social butterflies. Like, come along, let's play together. And well, in the world of investing, you have the same kind of investors. They say like, well, if you're successful, we're going to be successful. And therefore, we're going to help you navigate an ecosystem. So you have a lot of investors like that right now in the blockchain world. They'll tell you, hey, blockchain is like really a frontier stuff. If you come with us, we have relationships with all these different blockchain investors, vendors, ecosystem, and we'll help you be successful. Same thing with Moatti Capital. We help you navigate the world of product, right? So that's the kind of investor that I think once you start to have some traction, you have something that people want, then you associate yourself with a dolphin, and they'll help you accelerate your go-to-market. And then the third category of investors, we all need some, but in moderation, is the minnows, right? The minnows, it's like they in the world of gaming or in the world of social, they are the lurkers on Facebook or Instagram, right? So they will scroll through for hours and they will never like or comment or post. They're just here for the entertainment value. And you have a lot of investors who are like that. They'll give you a small check because of XYZ reason, and oh yeah, we're rooting for you. But they cannot do very much for you except for that. And so you need some of them, especially when you're super early. You need to get them. But if you have too many of them, you're going to have to entertain them a lot. And it's counterproductive after a while.
So this is kind of a good segue to the next question I wanted to ask, which is, obviously you guys are VCs, and that's one of the categories of investors, but there's a whole spectrum of investors that startups can look at. You have friends and family, you've got angels, you've got VCs, you've got corporate investors, et cetera. So how can and we get this question a lot where people will say, well, where do I go? Like, I just need 60,000. I just need to do a prototype, or or maybe I need $1 million. I got to do the next, launch the product, or whatever it is. Like, where should people look at, for investment? When do you go to friends and family? When do you go to angels? When do you go to VCs, etc.?
Want to go first?
So I think the key is really, as you mentioned, smart money. So money is a commodity. So the key is really to look at what you get beyond money. And I think no matter where it comes from, out of which pocket, if it's a corporate VC, an angel, like what do you get beyond just the capital? And I think like the smartest founders also think about that when they construct the round. And I think it doesn't always have to be VC. So for example, if you build a consumer product and you just want to test it out, Kickstarter or crowdfunding in general can be a great source, because then you can actually validate the product and you see whether users want it while getting it funded as well, and you don't even have to give away equity for that. So it totally depends on what gives you in that situation the biggest value beyond capital. I think VCs in general are very good at accelerating and giving credibility, which allows you to hire very good talent later on, which might be relevant maybe a step after you test the product. So that's why probably angel, the Kickstarter, crowdfunding initially, and then VCs later on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it is really important to understand why you need money, right? Well, number one, focus should be on revenue, right? Generating that's like the most important thing. And if you can be bootstrapped and get profitable, great. At some point, probably you would want to have money just to accelerate the growth, but at that point, it's much easier to find people because you already have the proof of concept, you have the product. If you do need money earlier, I think there is today just a lot of sources where you can get money, and that's where you need to be careful what kind of money you take, which comes to the previous question and discussion around that. You also don't want to have too many investors because it's really challenging. I mean, most of the investors would want to have updates, right? It's not just money in and then guys buy, we'll see you at the exit. No, you have to update your investors. You have to keep them posted. It's kind of like almost having children that you have to entertain, maintain, and it takes time. It really does. Like sometimes I think how much time our portfolio companies put to provide data for us, it's a big chunk of time. We do ask them to come to some of the events. We also try to be obviously supportive to them, so it's not one way. But it's not just money there and then you do whatever you want. That's why I feel like it's better if you have 1-2 investors that are committed, aligned with you, rather than 20 safe notes from people who, I don't know, safe notes also, that's a separate discussion, acquired, there are pluses, minuses to that. But you want to make sure that people align. You don't want to have too large of a pool of investors. And then think, again, depending on the business. For agriculture, I think it's very easy because when we were at Monsanto, a lot of people would come to us because we are Monsanto, right? We can actually test the product. We can do pilots with a company. So in a way, you kind of get a customer and be a potential investor. So a lot of corporate VCs would do that. So that's a very interesting strategic approach. And you can look for investors depending on that, right? Like if you need help with the product, if you need to go to market strategy or something else, just be careful about the type of investors you attract.
So I'm going to answer slightly differently than you two. Very often we hear entrepreneurs say like, hey, we need introductions to investors. There's lots of different types of money, but how do we actually get to these investors? And I think there's really three kinds of people you want introductions from. One is you want an introduction from an investor who has invested in you. because then they can speak to the skin they put in the game, right? 2 is you want an introduction from somebody who never invests, right, but who's an expert in your industry or in your domain, because they can vouch for how unique you are, how special your solution is. And then number 3, you want a reference or an introduction from an entrepreneur who has taken money from an investor, is making an introduction to that investor, because then there's sort of some loyalty in the relationship. And so these are the 3 kinds of people who you want to target when you're looking for introductions to investors. What you don't want, and we get this all the time, and it's really a very awkward question. It's like, hey, SC, I know you're not going to invest in us, but can you refer us to other investors? So I can see how the conversation would go, where you're like, hey, Fabian, I'm not going to invest in that company, but I really think you should. It's just not going to work, right? And so you don't want to ask that from investors who are not going to invest in you, because it will work very counterproductive.
I'll give a contra-argument actually here.
Yes, good.
I think it really depends, because the thing I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand is that every VC has its own thesis, right, which is your strategy. And if you pitch something, you just might be out of scope. It doesn't mean that you have a bad product. It doesn't mean that you don't have traction. It just means that this is not something that they invest. And the reason why, because we also have LPs to whom we report, the people who gave money to us for a particular purpose, right? And so there are cases when we would actually connect entrepreneurs to other VCs or people in the space, like for a potential customer. Sometimes I see companies, okay, that might not be something we invest, but hey, our portfolio companies actually may use your technology. You should talk to XYZ. So I think it really depends. Sure, if you feel like they say no because they don't believe in you from technology or team perspective, that's just generally a bad sign, right? But if they just pass on you because it's not the scope, then there's still an opportunity. But you gotta feel how the conversation goes.
So what is like the best way for a startup to get in front of the right investor, to identify and get in front of the right investor, really? Because I mean, we've heard about, like, kind of what you look for the teams, you look for the synergy, the alignment, the risk, allocation or tolerance, et cetera. We've talked about, what kind of investors there are, but like if you're a startup and you're in this room and you're wondering, where do I start? Like, what's the best way to actually think about it and approach it and actually get in front of that investor?
Mm-hmm. I'll give 2 sources. One is a website of VCs. You can just make a list and go and check out the portfolios, right? If that's something similar to what you do, that's probably a good target. And second is you follow entrepreneurs, right? So basically, you talk to them, and if they have already investors and they understand the space, they can tell you and navigate you more or less or what investors invest in which areas and who are the best people to talk to.
Yeah, I would also add that I would try to find one person that can really vouch for you, one angel investor, one mentor that has a lot of credibility among VCs, that you can connect with easily at events, that is closer to the entrepreneur community maybe than the larger VCs. I mean, they're close too, but you can connect with them pretty easily, and then once you convince them, I think they can really vouch for you and even get you in front of all VCs, make you introductions, etc.
Yeah, I think I said what I had to say in the previous question there.
Okay. So what kind of person should the investor avoid? Like, I mean, we talked about, how to find a champion and, how to get the portfolios and figure out what kind of companies that they're funding. But who should investors stay away from?
You mean the entrepreneurs stay away from? Or?
Yes, the entrepreneurs stay away from. Thank you.
That's a tough question. I think I guess the key is really whether the visions are aligned. I think it doesn't mean that it's a bad product or a bad team, but if the visions are not aligned of what type of company they want to build, I think then it's going to be pretty tough, because I think there's a lot of oftentimes VCs are, I think, misunderstood, or it's like seen a little bit of a black box, or some founders are maybe even like scared of taking VC money if it's the very first time they raise. But I think it's the best VCs are in the same boat with you and are very aligned with the vision of what you want to build, and I think that's the most important thing. And I think if you don't see that in the team, and that there's just not a personal fit, then I would probably stay away.
Yeah, I would, again, the easy money usually comes with a lot of baggage, so be careful there. Sometimes if you try to FOMO investors in, the good investors will feel it and walk away, the bad investors will jump in, but when things start going south on your end, those are the investors who will try to burn the ship and swim away and not try to help you. And I know some entrepreneurs who were in a situation when an investor gave the money because they were literally in FOMO, because, oh my God, there's so much hype, these guys are doing so great. I'll put like not 500, can I put $1 million? And like, okay, sure. So they take the money. And next thing, when the business is struggling, they're like, oh, I need my money back, right? There's no law that says you cannot do it. It's a very bad ethics to do it, but some investors actually ask for money back. And that's definitely when your company is already this and you need extra funding and investors pulling out money from you, that's basically like goodbye. So you definitely want to avoid investors like that.
I think it really depends on your goal. You don't want to get money from venture capitalists if you want to have a business that you're going to be running for a long time, that you're not going to have that start and end date in situations where maybe you're not growing as fast, or the growth would be not something you want. Then you're better off self-funding, looking for debt, stuff like that. On the other hand, if you think you're going to be a VC-backed company and you're going to have a fast pace of growth, then you don't want to get weird kinds of money. And I mentioned safe notes. Like we don't really like safe. We don't invest in safe notes. It's a little messy. You don't want equity crowdfunding. Most venture firms will not touch a company that has gotten equity crowdfunding. You don't want to get crypto token type funding. So because most venture capital firm will not invest once you've done that. So if you're going to be looking for venture capital money, don't take too many risks with your financing early on. I think the idea of getting angel money and self-funding and working your way through that, or some grants, stuff like that, is a great way to have a very clean cap table so you can actually raise VC money. If you try to do something too exotic, it will actually hurt you in the long run when you try to raise venture capital.
I'll just add, maybe not related to this particular question, but I think it's very important to understand kind of dynamics of the market, right? Meaning the VC provide money, but it's not just the money, right? You have to understand what VCs, what kind of business they are in, right? They're looking for return. Of course, they like you and everything, but still the priority is the return. And that comes with a lot of obligations, and we also have fiduciary responsibility to our investors. So like once you understand that, I think it's easier to understand how the ecosystem works and why certain people say no, why certain people say yes, what do they want, what kind of, how much work you would have to put in for this money as well. So they just think about it, and I think a lot of the people don't fully understand that. I mean, even when I started working in VC, it took a while to like really, really grasp it. So just, once you have that understanding, I think it becomes easier also to navigate. You want to have like a clear picture, who is where, who's responsible for that, and that helps you to navigate like who are the right investors, who are the bad investors, who are maybe just not the right investors at that particular time and might be good later in the future. Really depends. But it's more like strategy. It's like putting the right puzzles together to get to the goal where you want to go. It's not just like, I'll take whatever. You have to be careful what you take.
Okay, so I mean that's great feedback, but putting all that together, how can the startup entrepreneur make sure that they're getting a good deal, right? I mean, because they're looking at the goal. They don't take the fast money. They don't take the easy money. You look like you're ready to go.
No, I can answer.
Yeah, right. So, but that's the idea. Like, how do they get a good deal? How do they make sure they have a good deal?
So there's a lot of different ways to get money, and I'm going to describe a scenario that I see a lot in the Valley right now and that you want to avoid. So you start a company and you raise money from your friends and family, and they're going to be very friendly to you, so they're going to take maybe 5% of your equity. So we're going to do very simple math, right? It's going to be not exact, but it's going to get the point across. Then okay, so then I'm going to apply to an incubator so I can refine my idea. And they're going to take 5-10%, let's just say 5% of your equity, so you're at 10. Then you're going to say, okay, now that I have a pretty good idea and value proposition, I'm going to go to an accelerator because I need to get like a dozen customers so that I can prove my traction. And an accelerator is going to take like 10% of your equity, so 20. It's not exactly that, but we just added up, right? 20. And then, okay, my accelerator allows me to raise a seed round. And the seed round is going to take 10-15%. So we're at 30%. And then your seed round is going to go almost to the point where you can get a Series A. So you're going to get another like little, round there. But anyways, then you raise your Series A, 20%. So you've given 50% away. Usually at the Series A, we create a, say, 20% option pool because we assume you're going to grow fast, you're going to get employees. So now you have given away 70% of your company. And at that point, you have 30% left. And most Series B investors will be very reluctant to give you money because they will need to take another 20%, at which point you have 10% left. Again, it's not exactly how the math is proportional, but you get the idea. If you only have 10% left of your business and you still have like ways to go, you have almost no motivation left to really go all the way. And so I'm describing this path to you because it's really complex to navigate, what you're describing, like, how do I strategize my fundraising strategy, my fundraising? But if you don't strategize, you're going to go through all these little things because people are going to sell you on the incubator, on the accelerator, on the seed round, on the node post the seed, on the series. And you're going to then get stuck into a business where you will never be able to get out of it because your investors will be like, make me money. You will have no incentive to make money. And anyways, it's not a good situation, right? So strategizing means you have to actually navigate that path and jump through a few so you don't get diluted too much.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're ready to start taking questions.
Let's hear it for the panel. Applause. So now we're going to open to audience Q&A. We have about 30 minutes. We want to form a line here so we kind of know how many questions are coming up. Stand behind the lectern, use the mic. I want to point out that this is a panel discussion. It is not a pitch event, so please do not come up, pretend you're going to ask a question, and deliver a pitch or a thinly disguised pitch. If you do, we have a bouncer in the room that will deal with the situation. So you're on notice. So first question, Kerfaz, go for it.
Yeah. My question is from Anna. You mentioned DCVC has a deep tech wing also. How to approach them? Because you are from the bio. Is it website or some other procedure?
We can talk offline.
Okay. And SC mentioned founders, co-founders network. Are you still running that?
No, not anymore.
Because my co-founder left for Google. He couldn't refuse the job.
He's lost.
Yeah, lost. Yeah.
Hi guys, thank you for your insights. I have many questions, I'm just going to go for one. Amongst the startups that you invested in, what was the most common failure that you think you could have prevented?
Like failure in what sense? That the company didn't work out, or?
I guess however you want to define it.
I can.
You can.
I mean, the most common reason is that people run out of money. You run out of money, you cannot keep going, right? So you want to start fundraising, if you're going to go for fundraising, 6 to 9 months before you run out of money. So our companies who are at this kind of early stage, we have them at every board meeting, give us a number of business days until the zone of insolvency, which is about a month or two before they really run out of money. And business days make it shorter because there's 5 business days. So then it's like, oh, there's this sense of urgency before they run out of cash, so that it motivates them to raise cash before it's too late.
Would you say it's because they underestimated?
Because they think they're going to go to a pitch meeting like this and get a check. And it takes 6 months to raise around 6 or 9 months.
Is it bad risk management on their side?
Sorry.
I would say yes. But it's just planning.
A few things. I think depends on industry. Every industry would maybe have slightly different problems. In biotech, it's very often binary, work or not. So it can be just a technology that all of a sudden, it just doesn't work. Fundraising is key, but again, if you have the right investors, they usually help you with the process early on. I mean, if there's no traction, it's ability to pivot, right? Like how fast can you find the right new market or customers, or like how do you change your product? And I think another is you really need to know which area you're in. For example, I came across one company that the founder used to be in software, and then he got into hardware, and he was basically prototyping the same way you would do in software, which guess in hardware you have to put a lot more money and it takes a lot more time to prototype, and 2 prototypes later he just didn't have money, and his current existing investors didn't want to give more because that was just not capital efficient, although the team was amazing, the idea was great, but he kind of ran out of time. And if you understand that, you probably would do a little bit more of prototyping as an idea before you jump to actual execution. You want to have like a polished idea and do it, which is in case of software, it's different, right? You can just change the code and it's easier.
So how do you manage that risk from your perspective? How do you, what process do you follow?
Choose an A team.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. I have a question that, say, for example, he founds the A team, and then how the follow-up interaction happens. Like, definitely you invested. That means there might be some goal or target for the team to achieve at a certain time. So how frequently you guys have share updates, and then also is it only the board meetings, or is there are some special sign, or how you manage the expectation and how frequently you interact, and maybe what are the different things you mentioned about the how much the runway they have, what else you check in the interactions that you have after investment?
I mean, you usually get updates from companies, right? We usually take a board seat, so we constantly engage with the company. We know what's going on, and we help them, if need hiring something, strategy sometimes. So it's a constant communication. So that's just an important for you if you want to a successful progression of the company. If
Thank you.
anybody wants to.
Hi, quick question. Why the great ideas really fails? And what are the real success factors for a startup? Is it just idea, funding, team, or timing? According to you, what is real success factors for a startup?
So I think if you think about risk or success factors, you have obviously tech risk, you have execution risk, you have market risk. I think the number one reason why companies fail is just they build something that no one really wants. I think if you and then the second reason is team risk. I think co-founder breakup, and I think also a very simple way to split it in your head is like I think I would only, for example, approach VCs or going back to the point of like how the ecosystem, the value chain of funding works. I would only approach institutional funding or VCs when you actually have something that works and that you can then scale, because they bring in a certain amount of pressure otherwise to deliver progress that you might not want at the very early stage. So I think at the early stage, focus on getting the product market fit right to reduce the market risk. And then once you nail that and you have a good team in place and a co-founder you know since a while, you reduce the team breakup risk. You then go into raising funding and you reduce the financing risk. And then there's always the execution risk in general, but I think broadly speaking, those are the main risk factors. But if I ask you to prioritize, can you prioritize? Yeah, for sure. I would prioritize the product market fit at the earlier stages and the team breakup risk, which means that if you look at success factors, how long has the team worked together, how well do they work together, how solid is it, and the market risk are there early signs that show that the market wants this product or service.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Sonia. I have a question on how to fundraise for nonprofits. So companies that are not focusing on getting exit, but rather they are working on impact. They are probably aligned to sustainable development goals. And more often than not, I've been advised that, why a nonprofit? It could just be a for-profit venture that is still impacting lives. And I am currently working on something that's in the healthcare space. And despite the 3.3 trillion being poured in, healthcare and anything that's being done on healthcare still continues to be unaffordable and inaccessible. So with that in mind, do you have any advice when it comes to raising funds for nonprofit? I know it's a new area, but impact funding has recently started, and you guys would probably know more about it.
I can take it. So I think depending on the area, there are a lot of non-for-profit organization, UNICEF, UNESCO. They provide different grants. I'm sure there are a lot more. There should be some government grants. You can look into universities for particular projects, and those are usually the best resources, I think. VCs, again, as I said, driven by profits, and if you're not for profit or you don't look for an exit, this is not the area. So I would just explore other opportunities that are more government-focused funding.
Does anyone else have anything to add? I mean, I know that is one forum, but I also know that more recently there are some venture capital firms that have started investing a portion of the capital that they raise towards nonprofits. So I was wondering if you are aware of any such firms in the Bay Area.
There are funds that invest in impact, or they're still looking for an exit. Just make sure to understand that. I think they have a particular strategy where they want to improve society, etc. Very often that would be a family fund where one person is very driven to kind of invest in a particular area and is very patient and is willing to wait 10, 20 years maybe, but usually there's still an expectation for some kind of exit.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Hi. So we're raising Series A, and we have strategic partners that are saying, hey, we're in, but we need a lead investor. Once we find that lead investor, what's the appropriate way to connect that investor to my other investors that are not lead?
I can take it too, but you feel free to add. But usually if you have a term sheet, a lead investor would have usually a very good idea who are good syndicates, and they would almost like put it together for you. Or you can also, with that term sheet, go back to the people that you had the conversation with and say, hey, now we have the term sheet, but say we're raising 5 million, we have 3 million in, so we have the window for 2. Are you interested? And these are the terms. And if you guys want to add.
You want to say something else?
Yeah, just a quick second question, if I may. What does it mean when a large VC firm tells you, we're not going to participate in Series A, but if you raise Series A, we will lead Series B for you? What would that suggest? Like, prove us that you have revenue, or?
Do they say that they just invest at a later stage?
No, they participate in A, B, and C.
But they would want to lead only in B? I think that's just a polite way of saying no.
That's what I feel.
Yeah. Sounds like that.
So I don't necessarily agree that they're saying no. The question you can ask them to clarify is, what are the risks that you're willing to take and the risk you're not willing to take? And for example, you can list them, like here are the 5 risks, right? The team risk, technology, market, execution, financing. Which one of these do you typically agree to take, and which one do you not? And then you can go from there and understand, like, all right, so they think there's a risk there, so this is what I need to address in the next, 18 to 24 months, and then I need to find some investor who's willing to take that kind of risk. Like, for instance, a later stage investor will most likely never take team, technology, financing. But an earlier stage investor, maybe they take more of a technology risk. Most investors I know, they don't take a team risk. They want a great team. Yeah. Financing, sometimes they do.
Yeah, but I would imagine that they would say this if they're interested, right? They would say, okay, we're interested, but this is the concern we have. Once you figure it out, come back and talk to us. If they're really interested, I think they would be transparent on the issues they have.
Yeah, there wasn't much elaboration. I tried, but
okay.
Yeah. So, thank you.
And most of the time when they ask you, like, later, they want to see more revenue. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, all right. Thanks for the great dynamic conversation. So I have just some quick questions. So I want to know, how many deals do you generally invest in a given year, and how many startups do you evaluate in that given year before you actually invest in those deals?
I have exact statistics. We do it quite often. But so we invest usually in 6 to 8 deals per year. But we tend to be very concentrated investors. A lot of the VCs would invest a lot more. We look into something like 1,300 companies in a given year.
And only 6 are invested?
And 6 or 8 invest, yeah.
So we're much younger, so we're only 9 months old as a fund. We've done now 16 investments, but pretty early stage, so on average, I think the amount is around $1 million. But I haven't done the exercise yet. We probably should, but I think I would estimate it's like a few hundred that we've looked at so far.
So we come across each year about 4,000 companies. We meet in person with about 400, and then we do maybe 40 or so due diligence, and just like Anna, five to seven investments a year.
And generally, those deals come from warm intros, these startups that you're meeting, the 4,000 plus.
So more than half of the deals we invest in come from our network of product managers, and then maybe 30 or so, 35% come from other investors who want us in their deals, and then the rest is kind of diverse, depends.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm a small-time inventor and attorney, and I'd like to do some of this entrepreneurial stuff. But in the end, my strength is technology. We invent, we build. Now, from your standpoint, you're asking me, well, when am I going to get revenue? My revenue is I build something. It's a prototype. It works. It's an amazing device. And I'm going to be able to find a big-time buyer for maybe 100 times. How do I calculate revenue to give an investor? Or does an investor would even look at me?
Okay, I can answer. I think if you come to an investor expects a business, not a product. So I think that's a very big, important thing to understand, because we do see a lot of people who come with a great idea, but there is really no business behind, right? And this is the part that I forgot to mention that I was trying to remember. You have to have business people, right? Because I do see, because also we invest a lot in science, right? We see these people like, oh my God, I have this product, I have this new material, really cool, like sense can change shape based on pH level or something like that. But what is the application, right? How do you get there? So that's a very important thing.
Right. So that's where I start. I go out there and say, how can I make this? It's a big, giant business. It's a gigantic business. How do I make it so that I can make it work better, cheaper, more efficiently? That's where I begin. So there's no question that there's a market out there. There's no question that I'm going to replace labor. And there's going to be a tremendous amount of manpower that will be replaced by this device. All I'm saying is to do all the sales and build a company when all these companies already are doing it in a less efficient manner. That's kind of what we're looking at.
Well, I mean, if you actually trying to build a business, right, you should have some kind of letters of intent or potential customers, people who are actually interested. Investor would be willing to talk to them to see how real that interest is, right? If you come and just say, oh, we have all these people potentially signing up, nobody's going to believe you, because you can say like a lot of different things, and even they can, like the potential clients may tell you, yes, we will, but in reality, they're not going to do it. It happens all the time. So you want to have at least an indication that there is attraction. And it depends what kind of problem you're solving. If it's just optimization of the existing products, it's harder to sell because it's highly competitive. So then you have to have a very strong BD advantage, right, to be able to sell that product. If it's a unique product that changes the industry dramatically and you have strong IP around it, then it's more of a question just finding the channels and pushing it through. But you should be able to show that you can do it.
Can I just quickly add? I think based on that initial indication and traction, you can then put together a presentation and then convince investors, angel investors, to take a bet on that, and then raise money, build a team around it, and start to build the business that Anna was saying.
Thank you.
And there's just one thing I want to add. When you started, you said I'm a small-time inventor. Like, don't ever call yourself like that ever again. Like you're coming up with brilliant ideas that are going to change the world. Like, don't make yourself small. You're going to have a big impact.
Thank you. I'm a super inventor.
There you go.
I have a question. I'm just going to ask a quick question. So, I mean, he had a very interesting issue. I mean, he's got a product, he doesn't have a business yet, he's got an idea. I mean, what do you think about, what do you think about investing in like a licensing business? If somebody has, like he does, a great idea, but he might not want to build a business that actually makes the product. He might want to basically just get enough money to get a prototype, prove the concept, and then go out and license it. I mean, is that something that you guys look to invest in, or is there any possibility for that kind of investment, or do you really look for just actual companies with a product with an exit?
Yeah, we have company formation arm, which basically, if we really like the technology and there's strong IP around it, we may form the company around it. We may hire the right people and obviously take larger stake in that. Another thing, you may just think of hiring a CEO, co-founder, or something, right? Like we have one portfolio company which started with basically an idea, and these were art people, okay? And they're right now in kind of biotech materials. But this was started with the art people who came up with a product, and then they, amazing product, but they struggled to really kind of put it anywhere. And then they hired this amazing CEO who literally changed everything. And we invested in this company because we like the CEO. This is where it's like the A team. He comes with a background that's like very structured. It's kind of, fermentation, upscaling process. So you really need to be very particular, meticulous, like do everything, record everything. He's great at that, great at BD, nailed and put a lot of important contracts, which is also, something that, again, shows the traction, right? There's no revenue yet. They buying small samples, trying the product, but they have an intent and their actual contract on the table. Once you guys have it, we're willing to buy X amount of product. And that's something we would want to see. You guys want to add on that?
Hi, I'm Silton. Thank you for coming tonight. I have a question related to the A-team comment. Building an A-team is really hard, not because you can't find A-team people, but A-team people typically have jobs, and they have jobs because they need money. So you have a chicken and the egg kind of thing where if you could go out and pull A-team people who believe in your idea, one of their first questions that they'll ask is, do you have money? Do you have investment? Is this a real thing? Why would I leave my job at whatever company, whatever it is that they're doing and focused on now? Why would they leave to join something that sounds great, they believe in you, but they have to pay bills, where they live and, have to take care of responsibilities. Do you have any suggestions for how to have that conversation, both with investors and with people who you would potentially like to draft into your organization as part of your A-team?
Yeah, so I think I would start with pitching it to angel investors and convincing them, because I think it's also a little bit of a test in terms of how A-team the team really is, because if you can sell the vision and the story and get angel investors excited to back you just on the idea and the presentation and where you want to go, I think that is a good sign that you can really sell the story and the vision, and then you can go to your co-founder and say that there's some funding there. But I think generally speaking, actually that is also at the same time hard, because the investors would want to invest in a team that is already committed. So there is a little bit the chicken and egg problem. It's tough. You need to find people that believe in you and invest on the early traction that you can build up maybe on the side while working. Take some time off maybe. Holidays.
That's why it's so hard to be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's just really hard. There's no way around that dynamic.
Is that a realistic proposition of getting investment and building a company while you also have a job? Is that something that, I would think that people who are giving you money would say, hey, I gave you money. Now I want you to dedicate, 80 hours a week to making me money, right? Is that a realistic option?
Well, so for example, I mean, last week I invested in a team. They have nothing yet. So I just invested. They don't even have a presentation. So it's a pretty big round actually. It's a 5 million seed round. Because it's an A team, so it's a 5 million seed round. There's not even a deck, so they're just starting this week. So it does happen.
Are they serial entrepreneurs?
No, they're not actually serial entrepreneurs. They have just interesting background and they have a great story. So they can sell the vision very well. There's a really compelling pitch. They're thinking through the strategy in a really interesting way. So you can really imagine how they're going to build a massive business. And that's why they were able to convince a top VC fund to actually lead that seed round just on the story. There's not even a presentation. So it does happen. It doesn't have to be a 5 million seed round, but it can also be just like a smaller check to get started. But that's the idea, right? That you find someone to work with. You might test something a little bit on the side. You might not even have to do that. But I think, selling the vision, I think, is key to angel investors.
I'll add, I think there are different ways around it. One, I have a lot of friends who are studying a lot of different things and they have full-time jobs and they do it on the side until they get conviction this is it, what I want to go after, and then they quit and they go after that, right? So it sounds like the people who you talk to, they're not 100% on board, right? Or potentially, yes, maybe they're really like a hard financial situation, but I think once you can work on idea while working full-time. Nothing prevents you. And once you have, because you can get to a prototype or something, and with that, you go to investors and you say, this is what we have done, working full-time on other things. But once we find a fundraise, we are quitting the jobs. He has or she has family and kids. We cannot just, and we have these situations, right? Like you cannot just abandon your family, and but you need to show the traction. We had some companies where it was a full-time professor and he was building the company on the side. I mean, he built a company where he had already like 5 million revenue. And at that point, he went and did a fundraising, and at that point, we convinced him to actually quit the job because we wanted to make sure that he's 100% focused. But that came with a check. But he had something to show. Yeah.
Professors have summers off, so thank you very much.
Hang on, we've got time for one last quick question and some quick answers. Randy.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hi guys, good evening, nice job. So my question is we're talking here tonight about capital and how do you find the capital? And one of the things that I don't have enough time for, and I find a lot of people who steal it from me, is time. So how do you identify the people who are worthy of your time and the people who are stealing your time?
That's interesting.
Short answer.
Comes with experience.
That's a very good answer.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys want to, but.
Thank you.
All right, let's give it up for the panel. And let's give it up for our awesome moderator, Eli Mansell. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the time you've all been waiting for. It's time for the raffle. So has everyone who wanted to enter the raffle already done so? All right, well, let's do it. Hey, Eli, let's do the honors.
No,
I'll let Anna do the honors.
I see somebody.
Yeah, no, you can't look.
The winner is, drum roll please.
Cell Soul.
That's me.
Oh, there you go.
Oh my God, Kirfiraz. All right.
Maybe you banned the card.
You did.
Good God.
That is awesome. He's funny.
Okay, my nephew is very much into Fortnite.
There you go.
There you go.
He will love it.
There you go.
Good
Good
job.
present for Thanksgiving.
The video will be on our YouTube channel within 48 hours, youtube.com/IdeaIPO. Stick around, network, socialize, and connect. I think the panel is willing to do selfies against the Superman poster or autographs. As a courtesy to Procopio would like to leave the building at about 9 p.m. But again, if you want to keep the conversation going, please meet me at the Rosewood. That's where the after party is, and I think Procopio is sponsoring the drinks. So thanks for coming. See you next time.